and look at some soils. But trying to get as much plant diversity, as we can in the high tunnel, because everything in here plays a role. The sweet potatoes, there's a warm season tropical plant, and then we got cover crops way in the corner. We got cover crops just coming up here, okay? We got cucumbers in this corner, and then of course the carrots and the lettuce, flowers. Everything plays a role. Everything provides a little bit of food, and so you start to get some diversity of insects. And then you can walk in if you like. And as far as soil management, something I want to bring up in my talk is when you're in a high tunnel, a lot of things move a lot faster. For one thing, you've got irrigation, so we got a drip line irrigation. And the other thing is, though, if you don't cover your soils in a high tunnel, the salinity rate, the evaporation rate is so high, because everything evaporates so quickly in here, that as the soil evaporates the water out, it leaves the salts behind. And over time, that happens much quicker in a tunnel, because your evaporation rates are so high. And so the first thing we had to do is get the soil covered. So in this case, we covered it with the biodegradable fabric, but you could use alfalfa or straw, but it's really important to get the soil covered. That was the very first thing, okay? And then we started originally with the the overhead irrigation, and then it was too wet to dry, too wet to dry, too wet to dry. So it just was so uneven. And then we moved into the drip line instead. So now we got the drip line running through each 1 or 2 passes, and then we started to cut down our water use tremendously. And now we have there's an evenness now. So that was a big improvement. And so all of that together starts to make your whole system function a bit more. And the other thing I think is you want plants suited to the environment. So most everything in here is going to tolerate a lot of heat. The lettuce has been harvested out 3 times. It's ready again. But I didn't want to harvest it because, I wanted to impress Jean so that when she saw it.
And you did.
Okay, then now we can harvest. Now we can harvest. I've never grown sweet potatoes before. This is my first time on sweet potatoes. They come as a little, yes. They come as a little cutting in the mail, ordered a little pack of them, and they come as little cuttings. And they had a little sheet with them that said, yeah, they look like they're dead, but put them in the soil, they'll grow. And so I did, and they did. And, but I'm learning about sweet potatoes. They're 4 months. They want a 4-month-long season, so it's a long push. That means they have to get to the end of September without freezing in here. And so we'll probably have to tuck them in at night toward the end, I suspect, and throw a sheet over them or something. Because we'll have some frosts, most likely in September. That we normally do around the 10th or 12th, right in there. But we're going to step outside. Go ahead.
Would you just keep letting these just go all over, or do you turn them back?
They're actually, first I had thoughts that we should put a little railing along the side and keep them confined, and then I thought, no, let them make a break for the door. And so that's what they're kind of doing. They're trying to escape. And I really don't know how long these runners go.
They go a long ways.
Okay, you've grown them, obviously. And I don't know how they'll do in this bunk, if the bunk is deep enough.
That's what I was wondering, if you had room or not.
I'll tell you, into September, I'm going to tell you. I don't know, but I can always go over to the other ones in the future.
And loosen this up so that they can raise up.
Will they want to raise inside here?
Sweet potatoes grow down like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can certainly do that too. Take the pins out of the fabric. Mm-hmm. And the pins are only in here to keep the fabric from blowing away. If you have both doors open, your high tunnel becomes a wind tunnel.
Yeah.
So our normal day, everything's closed all day long, no matter how hot it is. And there's no issue as long as the roots are moist. No issue at all. And so our water consumption is way down from previous years once we didn't use the overhead irrigation. Let's step outside and let's look at some soils. Let's go ahead and just cut off a little clod here. All right, what do you see? You can kind of come up by the table if you would. What do you see? Can you see the individual soil aggregates? Can you see the small little particles? Can you see those? Okay, okay. What I want you to tell me, and I'm going to step over to this blackboard, what I want you to tell me is what's in a soil. We're going to do a little pie chart together, okay? And I want you to tell me what's in a soil. Anybody, throw something out. Except you, Susan. Nutrients, let's put them into the soil organic matter, okay?
Sand.
So let's say we are 5% soil organic matter. And that's where the nutrients would be. Very good. Okay, I heard sand. So the mineral portion, sand, silt, clay. Okay, that's 45%. Sand, silt, clay. Okay, there's 50. What's in this other 50% of the soil?
Worms.
Yeah, I'm going to throw those into the soil organic matter, but I agree, they're part of the system. Yep.
Water.
Water. So, about 25% water. Now we're just talking a typical soil. What's this other 25%?
Air.
Air. So about 25% air. These are the pore spaces. Okay? If I have two pails of soil and one's heavy and one's light and they're both silts or both loams or both sands, one's got more pore space than the other. The light one's got more pore space. Okay? So it's things to consider. Now, this you can come around, take a look at this, or you can pass it around, whatever you want to do. This is from my compost right over here, and so this compost, I would consider that is probably going to be part of my soil organic matter, but that's going to supply some nutrient for my garden. The two principal nutrient sources I have in this garden is one is in this bag, which is what? What's in this bag?
Yes.
It's one of my big nitrogen sources. What is it? Go ahead, reach in there and pull some out. Live dangerously. What is that?
Coffee.
Coffee grounds.
Yep.
Okay. So it's running on two things. It's running on coffee grounds and fish emulsion. Liquid pureed fish. You can buy it by the 55-gallon drum. And so I took probably about 1/4 of a cup of fish and filled the rest of the cup up with water. Twice it received that, plus it had some coffee grounds. So when you look in there, think fish and think coffee. Okay? Because that's, pardon? Used coffee grounds. Yeah, thank you. And you can pick these up at, I don't know where Kathy got this, one of the coffee shops. You can pick up the used coffee grounds, but they're excellent for your garden. And of course, everything here was organic material. Is this compost done or not done? If you can see anything that you can recognize, like straw, it's not done. Okay? All of that should be decomposed. Those windrows over there are not done. They're getting close, but they're not done. And think of it this way. When those windrows are put in there first, originally, everything in that windrow has to be eaten and pooped out by the biology. That entire windrow. And so this is getting close. You know, a few weeks from now, this is probably done. But that's the process, you know, that's the compost process. Okay? Now, I've got some soil here. Does it look a little different? Does one of them look a little bumpier? Okay, this one's got more soil aggregates. Okay, this one's got a little denser look to it, and maybe not quite as good a color, because carbon is black, right? So carbon is what makes our soils dark, just like coal and oil and that whole process. Okay, and one thing you can do this at home, is you can put your soil in some water. You want your soil dry. Okay, now this one is got more soil organic matter in it, so this one's got more carbon in it. Okay, this one's had more plant diversity, so we'll put that in the water. And when the water comes into it, it's going to try, first of all, there comes some bubbles, so there's your 25% air. So I didn't lie on that part, okay? Because we can visually see that. When the water comes into that PED, it's going to push it, internal pressure. And we want the PED to withstand that and not fall apart, okay? So that you can do that in your garden. Take a surface clod out and dry it, and then go ahead and you can put it in the water. Just looking for my second, we'll use that one. Thank you. And I like to cut out the bottoms too. So I always cut out the bottom a little bit to kind of give it a little more stress. Okay, I don't want to coddle that clod. And then I'll put this one in, and both of them, the water's going to come in and push. If the soil has enough glue, it's going to hold together. And that's why I always talk about the evils of the rototiller in gardening, because everyone's got a new one in the garage. Oil's changed, full of gas, looks really good, right?
Not me.
Thank you. And that's really destructive to a soil, okay? That's really destructive to a soil. So if we can limit that, or eliminate totally, that's a positive thing. Now this one has got a little less carbon in it, so we'll just kind of see what that one does. We'll let it sit in there. It's called a slake because as the water comes in and the pressure gets greater, if it starts to peel off the little microscopic soil particles, then it's slaking. It doesn't have as much glue in it then, okay? Because the rototiller is going to totally destroy the fungi because they're a hyphae. When you destroy the hyphae, your glue goes south, okay? And so you have that occur. Now the water's coming in, it's creating a pressure, and it's starting to slake. So this is commonly called a slake demonstration. Now I always tell my counterparts, you know why we don't do more of this? It just doesn't cost enough, right? If this was $50 a pop, I mean, we'd be forming committees, and we'd have apps on our phone, and how that would go. And so the slaking is, if we were standing in a cropland field and it was raining and this was occurring, what would we call it? Erosion. We would call it erosion. Yeah, it would be water erosion. Yep. And that's what happens with water erosion, especially when the soil is a bit degraded. It falls apart and gives up easy, and then it moves. Okay, and that's how we transport a lot of nutrients downstream. Okay. Any questions? You can do this at home. So easy. These are cheese ball jars. I took the hit. I ate them. I didn't let Daryl or Chad or anybody else have any. And I ate them myself. And you can never reuse the jars. You have to go back to Walmart and get new cheese ball jars. Always. Every time. Okay? So that's a winner. So that works. Okay. Now, a couple things. Regarding the compost, this is getting close to done. Last year I had tore down residue in my compost. So some of the products that we had bought, some of the material we had bought had tore down in it. Now, I ended up having to empty that entire high tunnel because it killed everything in it. Okay? Because these are sensitive crops. And if I would have put it out on a cornfield or a wheat field, it really wouldn't have cared. But tomatoes, green beans, potatoes, they have very little tolerance. And so that's a word of caution. So my new methodology is, when I'm going to use compost, I will first put it in a small container and put some peas and beans in it. If the peas and beans flourish, everything else will. You're good to go. And so if you get some compost from the city, or get it from anywheres, put some in a little container, put a few peas and beans. Now, you got to give it a little bit of time because the peas and beans will come up and they will look fine initially because they're operating off the energy of the seed. But when that energy is gone and they're strictly running off the soil, that's when you'll know. So you got to give it a little bit of time, for that to occur. So what happened? Let's go back to this. What happened to my soil?
All washed away.
Yeah, it washed away. And so this one is looking fairly stable. It's not uncommon for them to slake a little bit. That's normal, but this shouldn't happen. Okay, and so this one has very little plant diversity. Typically has the same crop every year. This is a full tillage system. Okay, and so if we start to take the rototiller out of gardening, makes our soils much more resilient, and they will hold more water and nutrient. Okay? There's always an adjustment period when you're switching that over, but that's one of the things that you will observe. Now, just to kind of show you also, we can pass some of these around. Be careful if you get soil on your hands. You could get healthier, so be a little cautious of that. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is these clods will turn into a series of millions of small particles called soil aggregates. All right? Now, I want you to compare that to something like this. I can pinch that as hard as I can, and I can't do anything with that. Okay? Here I've built a brick. So here I've taken the pore spaces out. When you take the pore spaces out, you compress your soil. It's denser. Okay? When your pore spaces are in the soil, it's quite friable. You can go ahead and you can break those up, and it's quite friable, the word meaning it'll crumble very easily. Okay? So when you're looking at a garden scenario, think in terms of the soil aggregates, because that's kind of one of your end games that you're working toward. This is something that you want in your garden. Okay? And then also, you don't have to use the biodegradable fabric like I have in there. You can use alfalfa. You can use straw. Those are organic materials. Your garden, all of our soils are typically carbon deficient. They all want organic materials to decompose on them. They all want this. And so whether we're in gardening or whether we're in crop production, there's really no difference on that. And that's carbon. And so as we add this carbon, which is the food, when you hear carbon, think food. Okay? And so as we add this carbon to the soil, our soil food web flourishes. As our soil food web flourishes, it builds a soil aggregate that's stable. Okay? We can have it rain and it doesn't wash away. Okay? And then especially if we have the material, if we have the organic material on the surface as well. I didn't mean to just keep talking. Do you have questions?
So what's better, alfalfa or straw?
I like alfalfa because it'll decompose quicker and the wind doesn't blow it away. I've used the straw a number of times, but sometimes, like on my potato production, our potato production over here by the shrubs, the potatoes lay on the soil surface and we roll the alfalfa over top of them. Okay? And so the potato is plumb happy laying on the soil surface underneath the alfalfa, about 8 inches of alfalfa. Okay? And I did straw originally, but I had to put net wrap on it just to keep it from blowing away. And so that isn't going to work. So then we went to the alfalfa, and I turned out I like the alfalfa much better because it decomposes quicker, settles down around the around the potato better, and it's got more nutrient in it. So it feeds the potato better. Okay? But you can use either one. You can make it work. But the alfalfa is kind of my first preference. So I got part of an alfalfa bale laying over there. Right behind you, we had some bales down the road a few miles. I think it was Andy in and had a bale catch fire, and of course it started to catch other bales on fire after that, and so it turned into kind of a mess. And then they asked if they could bring it over here and just dump it if we'd like it, and I said absolutely, because that's organic material, right? So I can take that alfalfa and I can let that decompose this fall. It'll go into the compost. And so it's a good use for it. So it's a partly burned up alfalfa. But think in terms of organic material. The other thing I've used on gardening is wood. So if you can get shredded wood shavings, wow. That's the real deal. Because what's in this wood? Yeah, nitrogen, carbon. It's a big carbon source. Yeah. And so the finer the wood, the quicker it'll decompose. But I got some from the city, has a site at the Plant Materials Center in Bismarck where they stockpile their shreddings and their chippings and all that. And we went and got some of that, and it was interesting because it was part sawdust and it was part new wood chips, and it was part old. So some of them quite decomposed already. And we spread that on the soil, and then I monitored the biology. And a year later, the biology doubled where we put the wood on. So it was really interesting. Now, the thing you got to remember is if you put some wood on, and I didn't put it so the soil was covered with wood, where I couldn't see any soil. It was just a smaller amount of that, maybe 50%. I could still see quite a bit of soil, but maybe 50% of the soil.
We have time for one more quick question, or you can wrap up.
Well, let's have a question.
So Jay, would you have to have the raised beds? If you augmented the soil, could you just use the fabric and plant directly into the floor?
You could. There's one unique item on this site right here. This knob here is fatty clays. So when this building was put in, we had to over excavate to get the fatty clays out, and then we had to bring in some sand and sandy loam because the shrink swell on them is tremendous. And there's 2.5 feet. And so we did put in, we did take a post hole digger, and there's two holes underneath each bed that are backfilled with gravel. Because otherwise I can't get the water through 2.5 feet of fatty clay. You know, it's just like
Otherwise you wouldn't have to have.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be concerned on it at all.
Okay.
And so we could do it right on the soil surface, but the older I get, the more I like the raised bed. Okay, I'm not sure why. I can't understand why. But these are just some things you can take a look at on your soils. Minimize the disturbance and get anything that is going to decompose. Organic material on the soil surface is really what you want. Okay.